Okay, that was my fault. I accidentally stopped recording that video, so this will be part 2 of matter classification. We're almost done. Okay, we just finished talking about what an element is, the simplest form of matter. And so now we're going to talk about a compound. So back up here when we were talking about water and the fact that a chemist actually could separate water, so the answer to that question was yes, then that classifies water as a compound. And so a compound is a fixed ratio of 2 or more elements. Okay, so what do we mean by that? Well, we mean exactly what we just talked about, that water is hydrogen and oxygen in the ratio of 2 hydrogens to every 1 oxygen all of the time. So there are lots of other compounds that you may be familiar with. CO2, which is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is always 1 carbon and 2 oxygens. Then there's carbon monoxide, which is 1 carbon, 1 oxygen. Carbon monoxide is very deadly. It's a very poisonous gas. What other compounds? Salt. Okay, salt is NaCl, 1 sodium, 1 chlorine. That's a compound. Sugar. There are a couple of sugars. One sugar, glucose, which you would have studied if you had biology, is C6H12O6. That's glucose. It's a type of sugar, right? So that formula is 6 carbons, 12 oxygens, and 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens, and 6 oxygens to make it glucose. And so that is the difference between elements and compounds. So compounds are actually made up of elements, but they're in a fixed ratio. They all have a chemical formula. Okay, notice right here, all of these are chemical formulas. And that, of course, is going to be the thing we end up talking about the most in this class, are compounds. Okay, so I want to do a quick overview of the 3 things we've talked about today in kind of a visual form. There's a reason I'm going to do this. There's a packet that we're going to work on, and it's always very confusing to students. So if I want to talk about an element, which we said is the simplest form of matter, and you can do this on the back of your note paper, and I was going to draw what an element looked like. Remember, it's the simplest form of matter. So like example might be gold. Well, maybe I'll just draw a black circle. That would be 1 gold atom, which we really haven't talked about the atom yet, but that's 1 tiny gold particle. And then if I drew another black dot, well, that's just another gold particle. And then this is another gold particle, and this is another gold particle, and this is another gold particle. And then maybe if I decided, instead of talking about gold, that I wanted to talk about the element neon, right? Well, I changed my color, right? Think about why I changed my color, because I'm no longer talking about gold anymore. I'm talking about neon. So neon might look very similar, a few yellow circles to represent a different element of neon. Now, let's talk about how compound would look different than an element. So let's go to our famous water. Oops. Remember, water is H2O. Okay, so I need hydrogen and I need oxygen. So let's make hydrogen red and oxygen green. Like Christmas. So if I was going to draw a water molecule, which is another term we're going to use, it would be made up of 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen, which is green. But they have to be stuck together because it's one thing. So something like this would be a water molecule, okay? 1 oxygen and 2 hydrogens. Now, if I wanted to draw another water, a second one, well, it would look very similar, but I wouldn't have it touching this time. That should be red, right? Because in this case, it's a separate H2O particle. So I have a H2O here and I have an H2O here. Notice how they look different from my elements, right? Elements are single things. Now, what would a mixture look like? So this is where we kind of come full circle. Well, a mixture, let's say we had a mixture of gold, neon, and water. right, in this container? Well, gold was my black dots. And neon were my gold dots. And then we're also throwing in some waters. Remember, they're connected, right? I kind of messed up my sizing here, whatever. Okay, right? So this is where sometimes students have a hard time with pictures, but I hope this helps you to see the difference in that elements are single components, single things. Compounds are those single things put together in some ratio according to the chemical formula. And then a mixture would be all of those things floating around in the same container. Okay, so that's kind of a visual difference between elements, compounds, and mixtures, and I hope that helped a little bit.